Hi everyone. Well, let's go for a drive. This is my 4-month owner review of my 2017 BMW 230i. So let's pull her out of the garage and see how she drives today. Alrighty. And contrary to popular belief, some of us BMW owners do use our turn signals. So, alright. So, it is Sunday, the 26th of February, and the temperature outside is 43 degrees, which is unseasonably warm, which I am certainly not complaining about, but not quite warm enough for me to put on my summer wheels yet. So at the moment, I'm wearing aftermarket 17-inch wheels, running 225, 45, 17 wheels with Michelin X Ices. We haven't gotten a lot of snow and freezing rain this winter, which has been kind of unusual here in Ohio, but for when we have had that snow and freezing rain, the snow tires have been phenomenal. If you've never driven with snow tires, I cannot recommend them enough. Even when it's coming down pretty heavily, I'm confidently doing 5 or 10 miles an hour quicker than the 4-wheel drive Jeeps with their all-season tires. Previous to this car, I had a 2012 Mazda Speed 3, and I ran Continentals for my summer wheels, and then I had a set of Continental winter contacts for my snow tires, and same story. With snow tires in general, you're gonna be okay, especially compared to all-season tires. Although some are certainly better than others, but I have nothing to complain about. Going from my Continentals to these Michelin X Ices. And on a nice day like this, even the X Ices have a little bit of grip to them. And if you've never driven snow tires, a 2-wheel drive car will out-handle and, more importantly, out-brake a 4-wheel drive car with all-season tires, and I can't recommend them enough. Excuse me. So, this car, what about this car? Well, what did I get? Well, I got a 2017 235i manual rear-wheel drive, because rear-wheel drive was the only way I could get it with the manual. And I had so many people tell me I was crazy for buying a rear-wheel drive car in the snow belt. And let me tell you, I've been fine. Perhaps if I lived out in the country on roads that never got plowed, you know, I would want an all-wheel drive car, but even then I would still put snow tires on it. Suffice to say, living in the suburbs, driving a little over 20 miles across town every day one way to the office, I've been totally fine all winter, even on the worst of days. But the manual transmission was the one must-have option. I thought long and hard about doing an automatic. I've driven some great automatic transmissions. Some of the cars I looked at, like the Volkswagen Golf R and Audi S3, you know, have the dual clutch system, which is a great gearbox, and even BMW's ZF 8-speed automatic is a phenomenal little gearbox. But for me, after driving so many cars, I realized for me it had to be a manual. I'm just waving this guy on. Come on. I probably had the right of way at this 4-way stop, but I figured I'd let him go anyway. And I stand by my decision. This is the easiest to drive manual I've ever driven, period. Certainly the easiest to drive I've ever owned. As I said, my last car was a 2012 Mazda Speed 3, and that car was very unforgiving. It had a clutch that was either on or off. It was incredibly heavy. Very rewarding when you got it right, very easy to mess it up. The shifting itself was very nice in the Mazda Speed 3, in that Mazda makes very short throw bolt action rifle feeling shifters. Not quite as bolt actiony as a Honda per se, but very nearly so. This car by comparison has a medium throw, I would describe it, with the shifting, and it's a little bit more rubbery, although there's never any vagueness. You always know which gear you're in. But the action of the shifting is not quite as satisfying. That being said, the Mazda suffered from not very good synchros, so you could not rush the transmission, and if you did, you would end up grinding your gears. This car has very good synchros, and you can rush it as quickly as you'd like, and it has no problems with it. This car automatically blips the throttle on the downshift, which has taken some getting used to because I got pretty good at heel-toe downshifting in my Mazda Speed 3. And I have really had mixed feelings about the automatic blipping of the throttle on the downshift. You can turn it off. However, to turn it off is also to turn off all the electronic nannies, including stability control, which, until such time as I put my summer tires back on, which have a lot more mechanical grip, I do not feel like taking away all my electronic nannies. So I'm just living with the downshift blipping. But that being said, I've gotten used to it, and it does help make me a little bit faster. In the hands of a very skilled driver, you're still faster doing it yourself, but it's pretty good. So what did I get? Well, I got an Estoril-Blue, which I'm very happy about. It really seems to change colors. On a cloudy day, it's this blurple. It is this very clear indigo color. But on a sunny day like today, it's this bright metallic blue with this deep metallic fleck to it, and I love it. On the interior, as you can tell, I got the Terra Dakota leather. I love the warm, earthy tones of this brown leather. What you can't see at the moment, but I'll try and overlay the video, is the aluminum hexagon trim, which I very much like. By default, when you get the M Sport package, it puts a blue stripe across the dashboard. I took that away and optioned for a black one to match the rest of the interior. Glad I did that. The blue stripe across the interior just seemed a bit much. But suffice to say, in terms of packages, I got the M Sport package and the track handling package. Those two packages have quite a bit of overlap between them, namely in the form of the wheels. You get the upgraded 18-inch wheels, which are wrapped in 225 40 18s up front and two 45 35 18s in the rear, with Michelin Pilot Super Sports. The track handling and M Sport packages do have different styles of wheels, so if you get both packages, you get to choose which one you like. I like the M Sport style better, so I went with that. But if you're only going to choose one package or the other, if you're an enthusiast at all, do the track handling package. The track handling package gives you the larger upgraded brakes, which, contrary to the name, the M Sport does not. The only performance upgrade you get with the M Sport package is the set of larger wheels. Other than that, the M Sport package is largely a cosmetic package. The one other feature that the M Sport package has that I really cannot say enough good things about is the M Sport steering wheel. Both the default and the M Sport steering wheels are these pretty large diameter, or not diameter, but thickness 3-spoke steering wheels. And I remember thinking, well, there's no point to the M Sport steering wheel. Why would I pay extra for that? Until I sat in the default car and saw the default steering wheel. It's leather, but it might as well be rubber. It is an awful to touch material, and I just can't say enough bad things about it. The M Sport steering wheel, on the other hand, is wrapped in a nice fine leather, fine Napa leather, and it's the best steering wheel of any car I've ever sat in at any price point. Granted, I've not driven many Porsches, and I've never driven a Ferrari, which I'm told have excellent steering wheels, but I love this steering wheel. But again, if you're only going to do one package or the other between the track handling and the M Sport, do the track handling package. You get the larger diameter brake rotors with fixed caliper, with fixed brake calipers versus the floating calipers on the default package. So if braking is important to you, and I know it's important to me, you want the larger, stronger brakes. What else did I get? I got the lighting package, which gave me the LED ring headlights, which turn with the steering wheel, which I honestly couldn't care less about the turning part, and honestly, that's just another thing to break, if you ask me. I've made it my whole life without headlights that turn left and right, and I certainly don't need them. That being said, the LEDs are brighter than the default headlights, but fortunately they are aimed down to the ground. I know I've been blinded by many aftermarket HIDs, and these don't seem to have that problem. They're well aimed, and so I don't have to worry about blinding other drivers on the road. And then I got the driver assist package, which gives me the backup camera and the radar all around, which, you know, I've driven my whole life without a backup camera, and I always back it into the parking spots, and I've made it my whole life without it up until now. And frankly, you know, I don't need it. it, but much to my surprise, I've used it quite a bit. I didn't think that I would, but I do. I still use my mirrors when I'm aiming myself back into position, but then once I'm lined up, then I use the camera for distance to get that perfect parking job, and it's great. There's the auto blipping on the downshift. So yeah, 4-cylinder engine, more than enough get up and go for me. Oh, other packages I got, or other options that I got. I got the Harman Kardon audio system, which I highly recommend. The default audio is terrible, and the Harman Kardon system in this car is not great. It is pretty good on the 3 Series on up, because they get the 16 speaker systems, whereas the 2 Series gets the 12 speaker system. It's 360 watts if memory serves me, and it sounds about as good as the Bose audio I had in my Mazda Speed 3. I wouldn't say it really sounds better, but it sounds as good. But it still is leagues better than the default audio. And then I also opted for the aluminum brake pedals. If I had to change anything, I would consider not doing the aluminum brake pedals. It was a roughly $300 option. For those that care about having aluminum brake pedals, $300 is not that big of a deal. But honestly, the black rubber pedals, I mean, I don't exactly spend a lot of time staring at my brake pedals, so you know, if it's important to you, go for it. If you don't care about it, then save yourself $300. That being said, I'm not remorseful that I spent it. It's fine. But I just don't really care about it that much. Every other option I got, though, I would get again. Are there any other options that I would get next time that I did not get this time? I don't know. I did the manual seats, which everybody is shocked that I did manual seats. In fact, the dealership said that I was the only person who had ever custom ordered manual seats from their lot. And I guess I'm just too impatient to wait for electric seats to slowly get into position. But I like the speedy transitions I get when I need to make adjustments or whenever I'm switching from one driver to another. I like to let my friends drive this car, and and that's satisfying. You know, and the funny thing about this engine, by the way, even with getting the 4-cylinder engine, it still is faster than my Mazda Speed 3, and I had a stage 1 tune on my Mazda Speed 3. But more on that later. Even with the manual seats, the side bolsters are still electrically powered, so there's still a switch that allows me, a rocker switch that allows me to adjust how much they hug you or how loose they fit around you. But these seats are endlessly adjustable, and they are so comfortable. The only thing that the power seats have, adjustability-wise, that the manual seats do not, is lumbar adjustment, which I was worried about until I went for a 5-hour drive in this car and realized I didn't care, because these seats are so comfortable and I was not lacking for lumbar support. That and the fact that I have heated seats, which I've never had before, and a heated steering wheel, which I've never had before. The heated seats just kind of massage the back almost. So I'm not lacking for comfort in this car. It certainly is the most comfortable car that I've ever owned, and one of the most comfortable cars I've ever ridden in. A 5 Series is more comfortable, an Acura TL is more comfortable, but you know, if I have to say Acura TL or BMW 5 Series to say it's more comfortable, then I think we're doing okay. It certainly is more comfortable than my Mazda Speed 3, which was such a phenomenal car, and I loved how stiffly that car rode. The seats were not well. They were well bolstered, but they weren't well cushioned, and they weren't very supportive. So on a long drive, your back would get sore, your butt would get sore. This car is very good at long highway cruises. And it's also great on gas mileage. I'm consistently getting 35 highway in this car. Even the way that I drive, my lifetime average in over 6,000 miles of driving is over 30 miles per gallon, which I'm just thrilled with. And not a lot of people who would consider themselves enthusiasts or who care about performance, not a lot of people care about gas mileage. I do, and perhaps that makes me a bit of an oddball, but I like being able to get 35 on the highway. So when I went into the dealership to buy my car, I was set on either getting this was in 2016, before they came out with the 230i and the 240i. Last year, it was the 228i and the 235i for the 4-cylinder and 6-cylinder respectively. But I was set on either getting a 235i, which was the mid-range Turbo 6, or the M2. The M2, I was going to be waiting for something on the order of a year, which I was not looking to do. So then I was like, well, then I'm going to get a 235i, and the dealer I ended up working with, he was a manual transmission driver. We got to talking. We realized that we were both very much into the fun factor of cars, and he said, "Have you driven the 4-cylinder?" And I said, "What? Why would I want to bother with a 4-cylinder? I want more power than that." And he's like, "Just drive them back to back." And I'm glad that I did, because I like the 4-cylinder better. Yes, the 6-cylinder is a little bit quicker in a straight line, but the 4-cylinder is just much better balanced. It's 150 pounds lighter, and with the 6-cylinder, all that extra weight hangs over the nose of the car, and it just kind of upsets the balance of the car. Which is not to say that if you bought a 6-cylinder, you'd be upset by your handling. You wouldn't be. But I was more impressed with the handling in the 4-cylinder than I was impressed by the extra speed in the 6. So I'm very happy with this car. BMW claims it has 248 horse and 258 torque. BMW, of course, is notorious for underrating their cars. I saw a dyno the other day of this motor, and it was putting down at the wheels 230 horse and 251 torque, which, using 15% drivetrain loss, as is the norm for rear-wheel drive, means this car is making at the crank about 271 horse and about 295 torque. And I believe it. It feels quicker than my Mazda Speed 3, and it is. I wouldn't describe this car as fast, but for a daily driver, which is how I use it, it's certainly quick enough. And I love this car. I might tune it at some point down the road. Dynon is a pretty good tuner when it comes to BMW turbos. JB4, there's a few of them. But I certainly won't be doing that before this car goes out of warranty. As long as it's in warranty, I'm going to keep it stock. And even after, I may keep it stock. Because I plan to drive this car for the next 10 years. A lot of people said, if you want 10 years out of your car, why did you buy a BMW? And that's a great question. BMWs get a bad rap for reliability. Prior to buying this car, I spoke with a lot of mechanics, and I did a lot of talking with folks on the forums. And a recurring theme is that the cars that have trouble are the cars that went 12 or 15,000 miles between oil changes, or the cars that were run on regular versus the premium that it says that these cars should run on. And every mechanic told me the same thing. And if you take care of these cars, if you use common sense preventative maintenance, it is entirely feasible. And this is true for most cars, but especially with BMWs. If you use common sense preventative maintenance, there's no reason you can't see 10 years or 200,000 miles out of the car. Now there are some cars, one of my other top competitors, my second choice car that I almost went with was a Volkswagen Golf R. And great car. If you buy one, you're not going to be disappointed. I was really worried about the reliability because I spoke with a couple of owners who seemed to have done everything right in terms of the common sense preventative maintenance, and they had still had turbo failure, and in some cases multiple times. And these were not isolated incidents. If you get on the forums and read what owners have to say, it's a recurring issue. Volkswagen, I mean, you don't buy a Volkswagen for its reliability. You buy it for everything else. You know, and if reliability is the only thing you care about, then you buy a Honda. I wanted something that was in between. I wanted something that had a little bit of luxury, that had some fun, but had some measure of reliability, and BMW was how was the car I went with. That was how I came to my decision. And I have not regretted that, and I don't think that I will, although more to follow on that. But suffice to say, I really like this car a lot. It's a phenomenal car. And if you're thinking about buying a BMW, look at the 4-cylinder. I mean, BMW very conservatively rates this car as doing a 5.5 0 to 60. I have not taken it to a drag strip yet, but I imagine that it's a hair quicker than that. I'm anticipating running high 13s in the quarter mile, which honestly, for a daily driver and for a backcountry road and for an occasional autocross track, is plenty quick enough. and that's completely stock. So I can't say enough good things about this car. I have very few negatives about this car. One other thing I will say as a huge positive about this car, I'm only 5'5". I'm a pretty small guy. 6 feet tall is where you begin to hit your head on the ceiling in the back. But if you are under 6 feet tall, you can fit comfortably behind me. So I looked at a 2, 3, and a 4 series before I decided on the 2. And the one I would not do is the 4 series. Phenomenal looking car. I actually think the 4 series is the best looking car in BMW's lineup right now. But it's, for me, that's it. It's a one-trick pony. A one-trick that you're paying a pretty big premium for. The idea of a large coupe in general is odd to me. If you need the extra rear legroom, buy the 3 series. It's less expensive than the 4 series. It gives you even more legroom, and it gives you 4 doors. But if you're buying a coupe, you're saying that you don't need the rear space, although I do like to occasionally carry passengers in my back seat, and for those short occasions when I need to, I can. That being said, I went on a 3-hour drive last month with a couple of my buddies, and I had a 5'11" friend in the back seat, and while he wasn't extremely comfortable, he wasn't hurting when he got out of the car either. So there's that. You know, if you, I don't have any kids, but if you do, the back seat is certainly more than sufficient for the kids. But it's a great car. It's practical enough for me. I've done quite a few business trips since I got in this car, whether it was driving to a location or going to the airport. In either case, the trunk is big enough for me to fit my foot locker in there. Certainly big enough for a suitcase or two. And it's practical enough for me. It's not as, and my garage door opener has decided not to work, of course. It's not as practical as my 5-door hatchback Mazda Speed 3 was, but it's practical enough. There we go. So anywho, I think it's about time to wrap up this video. But you know, let me know what you think in the comments section here. This is my first YouTube video ever, so I hope this was useful to you. If you're thinking about buying a BMW, if you're thinking about buying a 2 Series, I hope this is useful to you. And until next time, guys, have a great one.